The stars were silent. In the middle of the black void, the greatest fleet of the Galactic Empire waited. Hundreds of warships floated together, their silver hulls shining under distant suns. They were powerful. They were proud. No one had ever defeated them. Admiral Prevails stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Invincible. He looked at the screens. Every sector was clear. No enemy ships. No threats. Only space. Then, something strange happened. A small dot appeared on the radar. One ship, tiny, alone. Prevails laughed loudly. His officers smiled. "Is this a joke?" Prevails said. "One ship against the Empire." The officers nodded. It seemed foolish. No enemy would dare attack the Imperial fleet with only one ship. But the dot moved closer. And closer. Now they could see it on the main screen. It was old, rusty, and small compared to their massive warships. It had no Empire markings, no signals, just a name written in old human language. HSS Vengeance. Prevails frowned. "Human ship," he said. "Impossible. We destroyed Earth years ago. No humans are left." He gave the order. "Send a warning. Tell them to surrender. We will destroy them in seconds." His officer opened a channel and sent the message. No reply. The small ship kept moving forward. Inside the HSS Vengeance, Captain Drake sat quietly. He was the last human alive, the last son of Earth. His hands were steady, his eyes cold. In front of him, on a broken dashboard, was a small photo, a picture of his family, smiling under the blue sky of Earth. That sky was gone now, burned by the Empire's fire. Drake touched the photo gently. "They thought they could erase us," he whispered. "They were wrong." The ship's AI spoke in a soft female voice. "Captain, we are now within enemy range." Drake smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had nothing left to lose. "Good," he said. "Prepare the Omega weapon." Outside, in the Empire's fleet, the officers watched as the tiny ship stopped in space. Still no communication. Still no surrender. "Destroy it," Prevails barked. "End this foolishness." Dozens of Empire cannons turned toward the small ship, giant guns designed to crush cities, aimed at the single target. They fired. Bright beams of deadly light shot across space, but the beams never touched the Vengeance. The small ship shimmered and disappeared. Gasps filled the Empire's bridge. "What?" Prevails shouted. "Where did it go?" It's gone, sir," the radar officer cried. It vanished. Panic began to creep into their voices. This was not normal. This was not possible. Before they could react, the Vengeance reappeared, right above the Invincible. Drake's voice came through the comms, cold and sharp. "For Earth." Then the Vengeance fired. A beam of pure white energy, hotter than any sun, smashed into the Empire's flagship. The mighty Invincible shook. Metal twisted and broke like paper. The ship's alarms screamed. Fire spread across the bridge. Prevails grabbed the command rail, eyes wide with terror. "This cannot be. We are the Empire." The flagship exploded. A ball of fire lit up space, visible even from faraway planets. The first and greatest ship of the Empire was gone, destroyed by one human ship. Silence fell across the Imperial fleet. Thousands of soldiers watched in horror. They had mocked the small ship. Now they were afraid. Inside the Vengeance, Drake sat calmly. He was not celebrating. This was just the beginning. "Target next ship," he ordered. The AI responded. Target locked. Ready to fire. Drake looked at the stars. Somewhere, in the ashes of the old Earth, his family was waiting for justice. He would not stop until every last Imperial ship was dust. The battle had begun. And one human, one ship, was about to change the fate of the galaxy. Years ago, Earth was full of life. Blue skies, green forests, oceans filled with wonders. People laughed, children played, Cities buzzed with music and dreams. Captain Drake was not always a soldier. He was once just a father, a husband, a man who loved the simple things. Morning coffee, long walks, the sound of his daughter's laughter. But peace never lasts in a cruel galaxy. The Galactic Empire came like a storm. First, they demanded loyalty. Then they demanded resources. When Earth said no, the Empire decided to make an example. The attack was sudden. Massive Empire ships blotted out the sky. Energy bombs fell like rain. Cities burned in seconds. Mountains shattered. Rivers boiled. The people of Earth fought bravely. But bravery was not enough against the Empire's machines. Drake, then a young commander, tried to protect his home. He led fighters into the skies, shot down enemy drones, called for help that never came. In the end, he watched from a burning rooftop as his city and his family were erased in fire. The Empire called it Operation Clean Sweep. They wrote it in their history books as a small event. For Drake, it was the day his world ended. Back in the present, on the bridge of the Vengeance, Drake opened his eyes. The pain inside him had never faded. It had only grown colder, sharper, like a blade he kept hidden for the right moment. And now that moment had come. The AI's voice broke the silence. "Captain, Imperial forces are regrouping. Incoming transmissions detected." Drake nodded. His hands moved quickly across the controls. "Ignore their calls," he said. "They're not asking for peace. They're begging for mercy." On the Empire's side, chaos had spread. Admirals screamed orders. Captains barked commands. Thousands of trained soldiers, once fearless, now trembled. They had seen what the small human ship could do. And they knew it was not normal. The Vengeance was no ordinary craft. Hidden deep within its core was a forbidden technology. The Omega Core, a weapon created by ancient human scientists, long ago before Earth fell. A weapon too powerful, too dangerous. Even humans had sworn never to use it. But Drake had made a different choice. When the Empire burned his planet, he broke every oath. He rebuilt the Vengeance with the Omega Core at its heart. Now his ship was a ghost of human vengeance, silent, deadly, unstoppable. The Empire's Second Fleet moved in. Hundreds of ships closed ranks, forming a solid wall of steel and lasers. They believed numbers would save them. They believed size would scare him. They were wrong. Drake watched them coldly. His face was carved from stone. "Upload targeting data," he said. The AI responded. "Uploading. Omega weapon at 70% charge." Outside, the stars seemed to pulse with tension. Every Imperial gun was locked on the Vengeance. Every soldier held their breath, waiting for the order to fire. But Drake moved first. A sudden flash. A strange, low hum rippled across the battlefield. A new weapon activated. A weapon beyond anything the Empire had ever seen. Invisible waves of energy swept through space. Imperial ships began to fail. First their engines died. Then their shields collapsed. Then their weapons froze. In seconds, half of the fleet became floating metal coffins. Panic exploded. "Sir, systems are shutting down. Sir, we have no power. Sir, the human ship, it's a monster." The Empire had ruled the galaxy for centuries. They had crushed worlds, broken civilizations. But they had never faced true revenge. Not until now. Inside the Vengeance, Drake watched without pity. He remembered the screams of Earth. He remembered the fire, the smoke, the helpless cries. And he gave the Empire the same gift. "Fire again," he ordered. The Vengeance unleashed a second blast. More ships shattered. Some spun into each other, causing massive collisions. Explosions lit the darkness like falling stars. The Empire's fleet was dying. Not from fear, not from weakness, but from the rage of the last human. Still, some ships survived. The biggest, strongest ones. They formed a desperate defense around their flagship, the Titan. The AI spoke, warning. Enemy dreadnought detected. Massive power signature. Drake smiled, a slow, dangerous smile. Good, he said. Let the Titan come. Let them all come. He leaned back in his chair. Today, he whispered, the Empire will learn what it means to lose everything. And deep inside the ship, the Omega Core pulsed, alive, angry, waiting for its next. The Empire's fleet floated like a wall of metal in the empty darkness. Every gun was pointed at the tiny human ship, the Vengeance. Every eye was watching. Every hand was ready to fire. Admiral Soren, now in charge after Kregos' death, stood on the bridge of the Titan, the Empire's largest dreadnought. He clenched his fists. He had seen the impossible, one human ship destroy the pride of the Empire. But he refused to believe it could happen again. Crush them, he shouted. All ships, fire at once. Hundreds of cannons lit up the void. A storm of missiles and lasers rushed toward the Vengeance. The stars themselves seemed to vanish behind the bright light of the weapons. Inside the Vengeance, Captain Drake remained calm. The AI spoke softly. Incoming attack detected. Initiating Phase 1 defense. Drake didn't even blink. Let them try, he said. At the very last moment, a blue shield flared around the Vengeance. Not an ordinary shield. It was something much more advanced. The enemy fire hit the shield and disappeared. No explosion, no damage, just silence. The Empire's officers stared at their screens in horror. Impossible, Admiral Soren said. Nothing can absorb that much firepower. But the Vengeance was still there. Still moving. Still deadly. Inside the ship, Drake's hands moved over the controls. He had trained for this moment for years. Every weapon, every system, every secret, all prepared for revenge. Target the command carriers first, Drake ordered. The AI responded. Targets locked. Omega weapon at 90% charge. Outside, the Vengeance began to hum, a low, deep sound that made the Imperial ships tremble. Then it fired. A blinding beam of white energy shot out from the front of the Vengeance. It moved faster than any weapon the Empire had ever seen. The beam pierced through the League carrier ship, cutting it cleanly in half. The two halves spun apart, spilling fire, metal, and bodies into space. Before the other ships could react, the Vengeance fired again. Another carrier exploded, and another, and another. Each shot was deadly accurate, like a sniper picking off enemies one by one. Panic spread through the Empire's fleet. Officers shouted useless orders. Pilots tried to break formation. Ships crashed into each other in the chaos. Admiral Soren pounded the command table. Keep formation. Fight, you cowards. But deep inside, even he felt the fear. This was not just a ship. It was death itself. The Vengeance moved like a ghost through the wreckage. It dodged debris, weaved through burning ships, always hunting, always striking. Drake's face was emotionless. This was not a battle. This was justice. He remembered the day his wife and daughter died, buried under the ruins of their home. He remembered the Empire's ships leaving the burning earth, proud and unpunished. Today, he was the punishment. The AI spoke again. Omega weapon fully charged, multiple targets available. Drake smiled slightly. Let's make them remember, he said. He pressed a single button. The Vengeance unleashed a new attack, a wave of invisible energy that rippled across the battlefield. Ships didn't just explode. They were torn apart from the inside. Their metal bodies twisted and shattered like glass under a hammer. In seconds, the Empire's mighty fleet was cut down by half. Back on the Titan, Admiral Soren's face turned pale. Pull back, he shouted. Regroup at Sector 9. But the communication lines were breaking. Many ships were already destroyed. The survivors were too scared to fight. The Empire, who had once crushed entire civilizations, was now running from a single human ship. Inside the Vengeance, Drake watched it all. He did not chase the fleeing ships. Not yet. He knew fear was a better weapon now than any laser or missile. He wanted the Empire to remember. He wanted the story of Earth's last son to spread across the galaxy. "Broadcast the message," Drake said. The AI obeyed. Across every Imperial channel, a simple message appeared. "This is for Earth. You will never be safe. Humanity remembers." In the dark corners of the galaxy, rebels and slaves saw the message, and for the first time in many years, they smiled. The Empire was not invincible. Hope was alive. And one human, one ship, had started it all. As the Vengeance moved forward into the broken fleet, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. This was not the end. It was just the beginning. The wreckage of the Imperial fleet floated in the cold, empty space. Pieces of broken ships, dead bodies, and burning metal drifted like a graveyard among the stars. The Vengeance flew like a shadow across the galaxy, silent, deadly, unstoppable. Captain Drake had one goal: break the Empire's chains, free the enslaved worlds, and destroy the monster that had killed Earth. The first target was Duras Prime, a slave world. The Empire had filled it with millions of prisoners, working in giant factories, building weapons they would never use. Above the planet, huge Empire battleships waited. They believed no one could challenge them. They were wrong. The Vengeance appeared without warning. Before the Empire could react, Drake struck. He fired EMP blasts, disabling the orbiting ships. He launched shock missiles, destroying the command towers. He hacked the defense systems and turned them against their masters. The skies above Duras Prime burned. On the ground, the slaves looked up in awe. They saw the Empire's ships falling. They heard the Empire's soldiers running. And then they heard a voice, broadcast across the planet. "You are no longer slaves. You are free. Rise." The slaves rose. They overpowered the broken guards. They tore down the flags of the Empire. They cheered the name of the last human. Captain Drake had started a fire that no one could stop. From planet to planet, the same story repeated. Tormak Phi, Velrin, Zerathis. Each world once under the Empire's iron hand now stood in rebellion. And every time, the slaves would chant the same words. For Earth, for freedom. The Empire sent more fleets, more assassins, more hunters, but they all failed, because Drake was not just one man anymore. He was an idea. He was a spark that lit a galaxy on fire. At last, only one target remained. Seraph Prime, the Empire's heart. Captain Drake knew this would be the final battle. Either he would fall, or the Empire would. He stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, staring at the massive planet ahead. Billions of enemies waited for him, but Drake's face was calm. He was not afraid. He had already lost everything once. This time, he had nothing to lose, and everything to win. As the Vengeance approached Seraph Prime, the Empire unleashed its full power. Thousands of fighters swarmed the skies. Gigantic cannons fired from space stations. Missile clouds darkened the stars. It should have been impossible. But Drake had one final weapon. The Omega Core, fully unlocked. "Aye," he said. "Begin final protocol." The AI answered. Final protocol initiated. Brace for impact. A deep hum filled the ship. The Omega Core released its true power. The Vengeance became a star of pure energy. A wave of unstoppable force spread outwards. Enemy ships shattered like glass. Missiles turned to dust. Cannons melted into slag. The path to Seraph Prime was open. Captain Drake landed near the Emperor's palace, a giant fortress of black stone. Imperial guards tried to stop him. They failed. Drake moved through them like a storm, silent, brutal, merciless. At last, he stood before the throne room doors. He kicked them open. Inside, Emperor Valen waited. He wore golden armor. He held a sword of plasma. He smiled coldly. "You think you have won, human," the Emperor sneered. "You are alone." Drake stepped forward. "No," he said. "Look outside." The Emperor turned. Through the broken walls, he saw it. The people of Seraph Prime, once silent slaves, were rising. They were tearing down the Empire's banners. They were storming the fortress. The Empire was falling, not by Drake's hand alone, but by the will of the people. Valen roared with rage and charged. He swung his plasma sword at Drake. Drake dodged, fast and sharp. He grabbed a fallen soldier's blade. Simple, steel, human-made. The two clashed. Sparks flew. Steel met plasma. The Emperor fought with the power of a tyrant. But Drake fought with the strength of a broken heart. The strength of every lost soul. The strength of Earth. With a final strike, Drake drove his blade through Valen's heart. The Emperor gasped, dropped his sword, and fell. His reign ended. Outside, the people of Seraph Prime saw the fortress gates open. Captain Drake stepped out. He raised his bloody blade. A great cheer rose, echoing across the planet, across the stars. The Empire was dead. Freedom was reborn. Drake looked up at the sky. He remembered Earth, the forests, the oceans, the laughter. They were gone. But something better had risen in their place. Hope. He turned and walked into the crowd, not as a conqueror, not as a king, but as a man who had kept a promise. To never let humanity be forgotten. To fight until the last breath. To break the chains of darkness. Captain Drake had won. The last human had saved the galaxy, and the stars burned brighter than ever before. But Captain Drake was not finished. Not yet. Inside the Vengeance, he stood at the main window, watching the destruction he had created. His face was hard. His heart was colder than the endless night. The AI spoke softly. Remaining Imperial ships have retreated to nearby sectors. No organized resistance detected. Drake nodded. "Let them run," he said. "Fear is a better weapon now." Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. At space stations, on trading ships, on hidden rebel planets, whispers filled the air. The Empire lost a fleet. One human ship did it. The last human has returned. Fear gripped the heart of the Empire. Governors locked down their cities. Military leaders called emergency meetings. Citizens looked at the stars with new terror, wondering if the small dark ship was coming for them next. The Empire had ruled through fear for centuries. Now, they tasted their own medicine. On the Empire's central world, Seraph Prime, Emperor Valen himself watched the reports in silence. He was a man of power, cruel, brilliant, ruthless. He had ordered the destruction of Earth without blinking. He had forgotten about humanity, thinking them weak and broken. But now he stared at the screen showing a single name. Captain Drake, last human of Earth. Beside the Emperor, his advisors argued loudly. "We must send the super fleets. We must offer a bounty on his head. We must hunt him down before the colonies rebel." Valen raised his hand. Silence fell immediately. His voice was cold and sharp like a blade. "This insect thinks he can challenge the Empire." The advisors said nothing. The Emperor leaned forward, his eyes glowing with anger. "Then we will show him what true fear looks like." Meanwhile, in the dark corners of the galaxy, hope was growing. On slave worlds, where people lived under chains, they looked up and whispered, "Maybe the Empire can be broken." On rebel outposts, hidden deep in asteroid fields, they raised their fists. The last human fights for all of us. And in secret, some Imperial soldiers began to question their loyalty. If the mighty fleets could be destroyed by one ship, was the Empire really unstoppable? Doubt was a slow poison, and it had already started to spread. Back aboard the Vengeance, Drake planned his next move. The AI displayed a map of the Empire's key worlds. High-value targets identified, the AI said. Slave processing stations, weapons factories, command hubs. Drake's eyes moved across the map. Each red dot was a place where the Empire's cruelty lived. He would burn them all, one by one. Set course for the nearest slave planet, Drake said. Time to show them what freedom looks like. The engines of the Vengeance roared to life. The ship turned away from the ruined battlefield and disappeared into the stars. In the deep command centers of the Empire, fear turned into rage. Special fleets were built, faster, stronger, deadlier. Elite hunters were summoned, killers trained from birth. Massive rewards were announced. Whoever destroys the last human will be showered with gold and glory. Posters of Captain Drake's face appeared everywhere, labeled as Galaxy's Most Wanted. But Drake was not hiding. He wanted them to come, because he knew something the Empire didn't. He was not fighting alone. Every slave, every rebel, every broken soul watching from the shadows, they were with him. And with each Empire world he burned, more would rise. More would remember Earth. More would remember what was lost. The Empire had made one terrible mistake long ago. They had left one human alive. Now that human was coming for them all. The stars trembled, the galaxy washed, and the first fires of rebellion were about to ignite.